People were starting to say it's an East Coast, West Coast rivalry because it was people that's trying to make money. It was true people trying to make careers. It was people trying to get famous. It's that I don't want to be involved in stuff where it's negative stuff.
Hi, how do you do?
I need to talk to you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's the kind of revelation that feels ripped straight from a Hollywood thriller. Suge Knight may have struck a secret agreement with federal authorities. Whispers from insiders are suggesting that the man once considered the kingpin of West Coast rap is negotiating a deal that could shake the very foundation of hip-hop history. And at the center of it all, his longtime rival, Diddy Combs, whose legacy is already crumbling under the weight of explosive allegations. But that's not all. There's speculation that Suge might also be pointing fingers at other major figures in the music industry, including Jay-Z, in exchange for a potential early release. If these rumors hold any weight, this could be one of the most dramatic betrayals the music world has ever seen.
It's a question of that, but when you read through the indictment, it's pretty clear who could be indicted as a co-conspirator. Right now, there are people in the indictment who would be considered unnamed co-conspirators, but clearly have played a role in this conspiracy. And I think prosecutors have some big leverage on them because they're hoping that they testify against Diddy as prosecution witnesses.
Suge Knight's position in this unfolding saga is complicated, to say the least. The man who once sat atop the throne of West Coast rap is now serving a 28-year sentence for voluntary manslaughter after a 2015 incident that left a businessman fatally injured. But while Suge's current reality is a far cry from his days of luxury and power, it seems he's not content to fade into obscurity. According to sources, Suge has been quietly cooperating with investigators, offering up shocking information about the industry's dark underbelly. And apparently, he's willing to give up some of the biggest names in music.
There's no punishment if they're protected by the road, the judge, the DA.
The timing couldn't be more intriguing. Sean Combs, one of the most recognizable figures in entertainment, is currently embroiled in a whirlwind of legal troubles. Once celebrated as a mogul who turned Bad Boy Records into a cultural powerhouse, Diddy's empire is now under siege. He's facing charges that could potentially land him behind bars for the rest of his life. Federal raids on his properties earlier this year revealed a treasure trove of evidence, and the allegations against him have only grown more disturbing as time goes on. With his reputation already in tatters, the last thing Diddy needs is Suge Knight feeding investigators more ammunition.
2 weeks ago, I'm outside my office. My assistant comes up and says, Suge Knight wants to speak to you from jail. I said, who? He said, Suge Knight. The Suge? Yes. Gotta be kidding me. No.
Suge, however, seems more than willing to do just that. In a recent jailhouse interview, he didn't hold back when discussing Diddy's predicament. While he expressed a degree of sympathy for Diddy's family, especially his children, Suge made it clear that he believes Diddy's downfall is far from a solo act. Puffy didn't get to where he got by doing those things listed in the allegations by himself. Suge said, cryptically suggesting that Diddy was both a product of the environment around him and a participant in its perpetuation. He even named names, pointing fingers at powerful industry figures like Clive Davis, Russell Simmons, and Jimmy Iovine as potential influencers of Diddy's actions. And while Suge didn't outright confirm his cooperation with authorities, his comments have fueled speculation that he's sharing far more behind closed doors than he's letting on publicly.
But listen, thing I'm gonna tell you, we from two different worlds. Number one, him and I.
The feud between Suge Knight and Diddy is legendary, and it's impossible to separate their personal animosity from the larger East Coast versus West Coast rivalry that defined 1990s hip-hop. Suge's Death Row Records and Diddy's Bad Boy Records were at the forefront of this cultural war, and their rivalry was marked by public taunts, diss tracks, and even violence. The demises of Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G., two of the biggest stars of the era, only deepened the animosity between the two camps. For years, rumors have swirled about Suge's and Diddy's potential involvement in these tragedies, and while nothing has ever been proven, the specter of those events continues to loom over both men.
The dog pound, whoever. But I think as a man, anything you say once, you gotta be able to say twice.
Suge's motivations for potentially cooperating with investigators are as complex as the man himself. On one hand, he's a survivor, someone who's always been willing to do whatever it takes to maintain his power and influence. On the other hand, this could be a calculated move to settle scores. Suge has never been shy about his disdain for Diddy, and some speculate that he sees this as an opportunity to take his rival down once and for all. But it's also possible that Suge is simply desperate. With nearly 3 decades of prison time ahead of him, he may see cooperation as his only chance at freedom.
I'm not the guy who's in for Puffy's downfall, but I am the guy who supports the victims who got victimized, right?
Adding to the intrigue is the fact that Suge's recent statements have been unusually reflective. In a podcast episode recorded from prison, he spoke about the toll of his own actions and the impact of the East Coast versus West Coast rivalry on hip-hop culture. It's a bad day for hip-hop, a bad day for the culture, he said, referring to Diddy's legal troubles, because it makes us all look bad. While Suge's comments could be interpreted as an attempt to rehabilitate his image, they also hint at a deeper understanding of the stakes involved in this situation. By cooperating with authorities, Suge could position himself as someone who's finally ready to come clean about the darker chapters of his life. But what exactly does Suge know, and how much is he willing to share? Insiders suggest that his knowledge extends far beyond Diddy's current legal troubles. Suge was a central figure in the world of 1990s hip-hop, and his connections to both Shakur and Biggie make him a potentially invaluable source of information. If Suge is indeed cooperating with investigators, it's likely that he's sharing details about events and individuals that have long remained shrouded in mystery. And while it's unclear whether this information is enough to secure him a reduced sentence, the mere possibility is enough to send shockwaves through the music industry.
Got it. So you're saying Diddy's an FBI informant, and he's been one for many years.
That's what they say. Nothing never happens, but it's still, like I said, angel.
Diddy, for his part, has remained defiant in the face of mounting accusations. Through his legal team, he has denied all allegations and described the civil lawsuits against him as baseless attempts to extort money. But the criminal charges are another matter entirely. If convicted, Diddy could face life in prison, a fate that would mark a dramatic fall from grace for one of hip-hop's most influential figures. And with Suge Knight potentially cooperating against him, Diddy's chances of escaping this unscathed are looking increasingly slim.
Diddy would be throwing all his celebrity mates under the bus.
I mean, that could potentially be coming when it's time for court and when it's time for him to testify. But what we're seeing right now is how important public relations really are to Sean Combs. He's desperately trying to control the narrative behind bars, allowing his attorneys to do documentaries.
As the story unfolds, the tension between Suge and Diddy is reaching a boiling point. Suge's recent comments have reignited interest in their decades-long feud, and the possibility of his cooperation with authorities adds a new layer of complexity to their already fraught relationship. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal troubles continue to dominate headlines, with each new revelation painting a darker picture of his alleged actions. The intersection of these two narratives is creating a storm that could reshape the legacy of both men and potentially bring long-awaited closure to some of hip-hop's most enduring mysteries. But Suge Knight's motivations aren't just about settling scores or seeking revenge. There's a sense that he's trying to rewrite his own story, to position himself as a truth-teller rather than a villain. Whether or not his cooperation will lead to any real consequences for Diddy remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: Suge Knight is not going quietly. And as he continues to make headlines from behind bars, the world is left to wonder what other secrets he might reveal and who else might be caught in the crossfire.
Well, all due respect to Puffy, you gotta realize one thing. He didn't start off like that. I'm quite sure somebody taught him that. And that's more deep in the industry.
What's particularly fascinating is the ripple effect this could have on the broader hip-hop community. Suge's potential deal with investigators isn't just about Diddy, it's about the culture of secrecy and complicity that has long defined the music industry. By pointing fingers at powerful figures like Clive Davis and Russell Simmons, Suge is pulling back the curtain on an entire ecosystem that allowed certain behaviors to flourish, unchecked. And while his own actions are far from blameless, his willingness to speak out could force a reckoning within the industry.
We know some of the big names. I'm just curious if you have any names. You don't seem like somebody...
Well, for number one was Clive Davis.
As for Diddy, the pressure is mounting. The federal case against him is already one of the most high-profile trials in recent memory, and Suge's potential cooperation could make things even worse. If Suge is indeed providing investigators with damning evidence, it could tip the scales in a way that's impossible to recover from. And with Diddy's decades-long career on the line, the stakes couldn't be higher.
I'm here today just to tell the truth, so hopefully we can get down to the bottom of this. I'm 100%, the charges against me are 100% false, and hopefully due to time, we'll start to see that.
The feud between Suge Knight and Diddy has always been about more than just personal animosity. It's a reflection of the larger power struggles within the music industry, a battle for dominance that has shaped the course of hip-hop history. But as both men face the possibility of losing everything, their rivalry is taking on a new dimension. Suge's potential cooperation with investigators isn't just a betrayal. It's a seismic shift that could change the landscape of the industry forever.
Civil lawsuit, Cassie said that she was the victim of abuse, assault, and rape at the hands of Diddy.
What's next in this unfolding drama is anyone's guess. Will Suge's revelations lead to new charges against Diddy? Will other industry figures be implicated in the process? And how will the hip-hop community respond to the possibility that one of its most infamous figures is now working with authorities? One thing is certain, the story is far from over. As Suge Knight and Sean Combs continue to dominate headlines, the world is left to grapple with the implications of their actions and the secrets they've kept hidden for so long. The story of Suge Knight, Diddy, and the unsolved mysteries surrounding the golden age of hip-hop has always been a tangled web of rumors, egos, and shocking twists. But as Suge Knight's alleged deal with authorities begins to ripple through the entertainment world, it's impossible to ignore the deeper questions it raises about two of the most infamous cases in music history, the untimely ends of Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. These tragedies remain shrouded in secrecy, and while some have been content to let these mysteries fade into the past, others, like Suge, seem determined to keep the conversation alive. Could this latest revelation finally crack the code of what really happened, or will it only add another layer of confusion to an already complex saga?
Named Diddy 77 times in court documents related to Tupac's murder.
To truly understand the gravity of Suge Knight's alleged cooperation with investigators, we have to go back to where it all began, the East Coast versus West Coast rivalry. This wasn't just a musical feud. It was a full-blown cultural war that divided fans, artists, and even entire cities. At the heart of it were two larger-than-life figures, Shakur and Biggie, who became symbols of their respective coasts. Shakur, with his raw charisma and poetic lyricism, was the West Coast's champion, while Biggie's storytelling and effortless flow made him the king of the East. And standing behind them, fanning the flames, were Suge Knight and Sean Combs, two moguls whose animosity would define an era.
3 law firms on retainer. I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
The tension between these camps wasn't just about music or regional pride. It was deeply personal, and it only escalated with time. In 1995, Suge Knight took a public swipe at Diddy during the Source Awards, mocking him for constantly appearing in his artist's music videos. Any artist out there that wants to be an artist and stay a star and don't want to have to worry about the executive producer being all in the videos, all on the records, dancing, come throw, Suge declared, igniting a firestorm. Diddy, for his part, played it cool on stage, calling for unity, but behind the scenes, the rivalry was heating up. Things took a darker turn later that year when Shakur was ambushed at Quad Studios in New York, an attack that left him severely injured. Shakur believed he had been set up, and while he never had concrete proof, he pointed the finger at Diddy and Biggie, accusing them of knowing more than they let on. This accusation added fuel to an already raging fire, and by the time Shakur signed with Death Row Records in 1996, the rivalry had become a full-blown vendetta.
The only man currently facing charges in the case, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, claims that Sean Combs, also known as Diddy, paid for a hit on Tupac.
Suge Knight's role in all of this cannot be overstated. As the co-founder of Death Row Records, he was not only Shakur's boss, but also his most vocal ally. Suge was known for his larger-than-life persona and his willingness to go to extreme lengths to protect his artists. But his tactics often crossed the line, earning him a reputation as one of the most feared men in the industry. Insiders have long speculated that Suge's involvement in the feud went far beyond public posturing, with some alleging that he orchestrated behind-the-scenes moves to intimidate and undermine his rivals. And now, with rumors swirling about his cooperation with authorities, many are wondering just how much Suge knows and how much he's willing to reveal.
And they're more important to the police on the streets than in here, because they let them know what's going on.
Shakur's tragic passing in September 1996 only deepened the animosity between the East and West Coast camps. The circumstances surrounding the incident were as dramatic as they were mysterious. Shakur was at the height of his career, riding high on the success of his double album and making headlines for his fiery public persona. But his life was cut short in a Las Vegas drive-by, an event that sent shockwaves through the music world. Suge Knight, who was with Shakur that night, emerged relatively unscathed, adding another layer of intrigue to an already puzzling case. Over the years, Suge has offered conflicting accounts of what happened, fueling speculation about his true role in the events of that night.
A U.S. judge has ruled that the rapper and producer Sean Diddy Combs will stand trial on federal trafficking and racketeering charges in May. He'll be held in prison until then. Sean Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges that he used his business empire to transport women and male sex workers across state lines to take part in recorded performances. If convicted, he could face a life sentence.
Just 6 months later, the notorious B.I.G. met a similar fate in Los Angeles. His passing, widely seen as retaliation for Shakur's, only deepened the tragedy and cemented the feud's legacy as one of the darkest chapters in hip-hop history. Like Shakur's case, Biggie's remains unsolved, with countless theories about who was responsible. Some have pointed fingers at Suge Knight, suggesting that he sought revenge for Shakur's passing, while others believe that Diddy's camp may have played a role in orchestrating the violence. The truth, however, has remained elusive, with both cases mired in conspiracy theories and a lack of concrete evidence.
Hey, real quickly, all that commissary stuff, he's not getting any of that because people in the SHU have an abbreviated list. So he's out of luck. No stake for him. Yeah, he is on suicide watch. This guy thought he would have went home. All of a sudden, he didn't get bond. Remember, the first night that he was there, he was like an overnight guest.
This brings us back to the present day and Suge Knight's alleged cooperation with investigators. If the rumors are true, Suge could hold the key to unraveling these decades-old mysteries. His position as a central figure in the East Coast versus West Coast feud gives him unique insight into the events that transpired during that time. And while he has always maintained his innocence, his willingness to speak out now could suggest that he has information he's been holding on to for years.
And that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day. And now there's talk about putting him in, it's like a bubble. It's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it where they have inmates watching you. That's actually their job, to keep an eye on the inmates that are on suicide watch.
Of course, not everyone is convinced that Suge's motives are pure. Some believe that his decision to cooperate is less about seeking justice and more about self-preservation. With nearly 3 decades of incarceration ahead of him, Suge may see this as his last chance to regain some semblance of freedom. By offering up information on Diddy and other industry figures, he could position himself as an invaluable asset to investigators, potentially earning a reduced sentence in exchange. But whether his claims will hold up under scrutiny remains to be seen.
Some people do think that Diddy can help him, but this guy's going to be locked up forever. His case will probably take at least 3 years to litigate. He'll stay at MDC. There's rumors that he wants to go to Essex County Jail in New Jersey because he doesn't like MDC. He's a Marshall's inmate. There's no way they're going to transfer him back and forth, I don't know, several times a week.
Diddy, meanwhile, finds himself in an increasingly precarious position. The legal troubles he's currently facing are bad enough, but the possibility of Suge Knight cooperating against him adds a whole new layer of complexity. If Suge's information leads to new charges or revelations, it could spell the end of Diddy's career and his freedom. And with rumors swirling about his potential involvement in the events of the 1990s, Diddy's legacy is on the line in a way it never has been before.
Now, to the latest on the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs. This one has so many people talking. The disgraced music mogul facing federal racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking charges. Both the prosecution and defense teams are set to discuss the next phase of action following the indictment as investigators work to determine potential co-conspirators. But how exactly did we get here?
What's particularly fascinating about this saga is the way it underscores the interconnectedness of the hip-hop world. The demises of Shakur and Biggie were not isolated incidents. They were the culmination of years of tension, rivalry, and unresolved conflicts. And while the industry has moved on in many ways, the shadow of that era still looms large. Suge Knight's alleged cooperation with authorities is a stark reminder that the past is never truly behind us, and that the truth has a way of coming to light even decades later. As Suge continues to make headlines from behind bars, the hip-hop community is left to grapple with the implications of his actions. If he is indeed cooperating with investigators, it raises uncomfortable questions about loyalty, betrayal, and the lengths people will go to protect themselves. It also forces us to confront the darker side of an industry that has long been romanticized for its glamour and success. Behind the music, there's a world of secrets, power struggles, and compromises that most fans will never fully understand.
This is very significant, just from who we associate Diddy being and everything we've seen him do over the decades. Like you said, this is quite the downfall to go from, we saw the mansions back in March that were raided by the feds. So to go from living in those mansions to being in a jail cell right now, I think it really underscores the magnitude of what he's facing and the weight of the federal government.
But perhaps the most compelling aspect of this story is the way it challenges our perceptions of Suge Knight and Sean Combs. For years, these two men have been seen as polar opposites, Suge as the ruthless enforcer and Diddy as the savvy businessman. But as the details of their pasts continue to emerge, it's clear that the reality is far more complicated. Both men have played significant roles in shaping the music industry, but their legacies are now inextricably tied to the controversies and tragedies of the 1990s.
I think it's to be expected, just the shock of this and the questions about what is ahead of us. How long is he going to be in custody? Is this an R. Kelly situation? Is he going to not get out for a number of years? Is he going to end up serving a long-term prison sentence from this? or does he have a chance of beating these charges at a trial that could come, within the next 2 years?
The big question now is how this will all end. Will Suge's cooperation lead to new breakthroughs in the cases of Shakur and Biggie? Will Diddy face even more legal trouble as a result? And what does this mean for the future of hip-hop, an art form that has always thrived on reinvention and resilience? These are questions that only time will answer. But one thing is certain. The story of Suge Knight, Diddy, and the East Coast versus West Coast feud is far from over. If anything, it's entering a new chapter, one that promises to be just as dramatic and unpredictable as the ones that came before. And as the world watches this saga unfold, the legacy of hip-hop hangs in the balance, waiting for the next twist in a tale that has captivated fans for decades. So, what do you think? Is Suge Knight truly willing to spill all the secrets he knows? And if so, could this finally bring closure to the mysteries surrounding Shakur and Biggie's demises? And how might this impact Diddy's current legal battles? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on this unfolding drama. Thanks for watching,